Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday, June the 19th. Sun is shining here on Jewett Creek in White Salmon at the Hermitage this morning. And something about the quality of light says it's summer. So, and indeed, in a couple days, we have the summer solstice coming up. So, seems like, at least on one level, everything's normal and as it should be. Who is all here this morning? 59 of my favorite people. A few announcements for those tuning into the evening pujas. Last night I decided we'd switch over to chanting the Parita chanting, the auspicious chants. So we'll be doing that for a little bit here. I like to kind of switch things up every once in a while. We need to kind of practice these things anyways, and so we'll be doing some Parita chanting for a while. People interested in the Pali there. Some of them you might know. Oftentimes we include in our Parita chanting the Karaniya Metta Sutta, which is the, what's the English title we have in our chanting book? The Discourse on Loving Kindness or something like that. So from the Sutta Nipata, one of my favorite suttas or verses on the cultivation of Metta Bhavana. So that's in there. Also the Itipiso. And then everybody knows or ought to know the Namo Tassa, homage to the Blessed One, and the three refuges. So we start off with an invitation to the Devatas, summoning the Devatas to come and listen, alerting them that the Dhamma is about to be recited, and then go into the triple homage and the refuges, the three refuges. So for those joining us in the evening time, that's the program for a while. So if you don't have volume 2, grab volume 2 or the PDF of it and be prepared for that. So also I've heard from people that are in different parts of the world listening at different times to this. And the date is a bit off, so they were asking for different naming conventions so it's easy to find particular days. So I'm going to change up the naming convention for people that are watching this who are not participating live. And I'll just pop in the a very short form of the date. And then I just shortened it to morning coffee instead of morning coffee with Ajahn Sudanto. We all know it's Ajahn Sudanto. So that'd be the new naming convention. And then also, since there's a bunch of these on the YouTube channel now, I've also set up playlists for the months, and it's a little bit of handwork to kind of go in and do this, but there's playlists for the different months. And those, one of the reasons I set those up is that's okay. So what I was saying was the one at the very top of that list will be yesterday's. So can you hear me now? Okay, one thumb, two thumbs. Yeah. Okay, obviously I didn't set my screen share up correctly, but for those who didn't hear, one more time, what I was saying is in the listing on those playlists, the yesterday's will be at the very top, and then they just kind of go down. So if you want to catch up, say you take a break, and for some reason you want to catch up, you can just go and hit that playlist. It'll play yesterday's, and then the day before that, and the day before that, until you get sick of hearing Ajahn Sudanto. So. Mhm. So I was listening to something early this morning on the theme of happiness and happiness research. And there's some research about the role that relationship plays in a happy life is something that's always been quite interesting. And for a celibate monk who lives in an order that takes seriously the Buddha's injunction to cultivate solitude and silence and simplicity, it might sound a little strange to be singing the praises of relationship as a form of happiness. But I think the research proves out that generally people that have meaningful relationships are happier than people that don't. And oftentimes, in the summary of one's life, it isn't how much money we made or how much time we spent at the office. It's oftentimes the relationships that we've had that in the final analysis have brought us to the most meaning in our lives. So, and although the Buddha's injunction is to be a lover of solitude and inclined to silence, even profound level of silence, and being judicious with how much time one sort of spends socializing, he did set up a whole community, and a very vibrant sort of community, which to me has always been an interesting thing to contemplate. I mean, he could have easily sort of said, okay, here's the teaching, go off, find yourself a cave or a lonely hut in the forest and get to it, and don't come back until you're enlightened. But he didn't. He set up communities, and there's much in praise of being judicious in the choice of one's friends. It's seeking out good friends, noble friends, the Kalyanamitta. So, relationship often, is indispensable, I think, even for somebody who wants to dedicate themselves to the monastic path of practice. Of course, the ideal of solitude is something oftentimes we're maybe not ready for. And it is with the support of good friends and the support of communities that we might even approach that being a useful endeavor. So one of the things that we're talking about was some research about just how increasingly in our society, people are seeking a kind of solitude that isn't very nourishing. I mean, you see this with our smartphones increasingly, people walking around, AirPods, earbuds in, absorbed in their Black Mirror, especially in urban settings. Everybody's got their own car increasingly, and an increasingly large proportion of the population lives alone, and oftentimes we long for solitude, but maybe for the wrong reasons. And they were talking about these studies where they've done looking at, how people predict being alone in public settings, how that will make them happier when indeed the research bears out that having these little interactions with people, even complete strangers, promotes happiness. And in thinking about that, and also the Buddhist injunction not to waste one's time in idle chatter and indulging in the pleasures of society or socializing. There's various things in the suttas where the Buddha talks about that. In thinking about that, and also my own experience of solitude, I think what's producing the happiness there is really a sense of connection. And we can find that connection in many ways. And indeed, it can be happiness, and I suspect we're even wired for this kind of happiness of meeting new people, having some very friendly sort of exchange. Like when you're on the airplane or on the subway or standing in the line somewhere, it can be very delightful just to meet somebody new and have some sort of relatively friendly, kind, innocuous kind of contact. But if I think about what's more kind of essential in cultivating and supporting the experience of happiness, I think connection is something that's really close to the center of it. And one doesn't necessarily need to be in the presence of other people to sort of experience the happiness and the fullness of connection. And it doesn't necessarily even need to be with other people. So many, including myself, feel an incredible sense of connection being in the wilderness or being in the natural environment. I feel a happy sense of connection in the morning when I open my window and the sound of birdsong starts to flood in. There is some, very deep kind of sense of connection there to the environment and these other living beings that I'm sharing this space with. I even feel a sense of connection with rocks and mountains. I can't tell you how much I love mountains, and just the sight of a mountain, even a video or a photograph of a mountain, but especially sort of being on a mountain, high on a mountain. I feel some strange, weird sense of connectedness. It's quite delightful. Looking up into the night sky and contemplating the vastness of space and other stars and other solar systems. I feel a sense of connectedness. One of the most surprising and delightful experiences of spending a year in solitude a few years ago at Birken Monastery was just how loved and connected I felt throughout that whole time. Not just to the little environment, that little patch of forest I was living in, or my Sangha, my community. My immediate community there I had almost no contact with anybody aside from Ajahn Son every couple of weeks, and Sister Mon would meet me once a week for some necessary sort of notes and exchange of what was going on, what was changing in the monastery. But other than that, I wasn't talking with anybody else in the community or writing letters or sending emails or have any connection with my family or my other teachers and fellow monks. And yet I experienced this profound sense of warmth and connectedness in my being and just living like that. I felt especially connected to the little bunnies and the squirrels and the birds in the marsh, the animals in the forest. And that really was such a beautiful experience. One would expect to feel lonely in such circumstances. And I've often contemplated why, and I don't know the full answer. I think a few of the elements are I did spend some time connecting with family and teachers and friends, moving into that period of solitude. And so I felt clear about my relationship to them and even clear about how what I was doing, spending a period of time in solitude, fit into my life as a monk and as their son, brother, sister, as their disciple, as their kalyanamita or friend. But also I just felt like I belonged in that place and in the environment and in the world, and everything seemed okay for the most part. And these are all worldly sources of that sense of connection, but not to be neglected, I think is my point. There is an importance and a skillfulness in sorting out that dimension of our life. And it acts as a support for turning into and deepening other sources of happiness, which I think we can also reflect on with a sense of connectedness. So, and of course, when we get it wrong, we have all the, I don't know if this is the right word, but all the pathology of afflictive emotions and ill health in the mental, emotional dimension and the spiritual dimension. Oh. Absent some sense of connection and meaning, of course, people do not flourish. They're beset by sadness, anger, a kind of bitterness, depression that can even lead oneself to kill oneself. So, it is a question of life or death, really, to find one's place in the world. And to find a way to meaningfully connect to that. So, there's good and evil in the world. There are people doing skillful and unskillful things, but it is the world. It all belongs. If you have a sense that you're born in the wrong time and place, or somehow that the world is uniquely flawed, there's work to do to grow your understanding, to grow your equanimity and acceptance of the world as it is. And I suspect a lot of that comes from our failure to adequately sort of address and nurture a whole I don't want to say holistic, but this way of connecting into the world, into the environment, into the relationships, the family, the community that we have, to our life's work, whatever that is. Oh. And when we get it right, the reward is a profound sense of emotional well-being. So, and indeed, learning how to foster a profound sense of emotional well-being plays a huge role in experiencing that sense of connection. So, so through selfless generosity, care and concern for others, through ethical and virtuous behavior, through developing the mind, cultivating this mindful awareness that we speak of so much and praise so much, dwelling in the divine abidings of metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. And of course, a very deep and profound sort of sense is found in serenity itself, especially the serenity that is informed, infused with an understanding of the Dhamma. There is no lack. There we feel perfectly connected with this experience of mind and body and our environment. And while we can see and understand we are not deluded by skillfulness and unskillfulness that exist, the good and bad of the world, we're not confused by it. And there's a profound and skillful sense of connection to the now and the experience of the now. So a few thoughts this morning just on connection. I didn't mean to sermonize. It's just more reflecting on it. I think it's something really, it's an interesting contemplation, particularly the relationship that it has to energy. I think paying attention to the energy of the heart, the mind, and the body is a worthy contemplation to sort of intuit and ferret out the right way to be in the world and to move our practice forward. And I think this sense of connection has a relationship to that. Even the very act of meditating, we need to move away from the disconnected, discursive, diversive experience of mind to one that is whole and wholeheartedly connected with the object of our awareness. And that is the ever-present opportunity for practicing and experiencing this kind of connection. And the lack of that the inability to feel that and stabilize that in the mind does feel uh, dissonant, does feel like dukkha. So offer that for your reflection this morning, something to think about, something to explore. I think I covered the whole gamut. Uh, Let me give a moment. I'll give you a moment to drink your coffee, and I'll take a moment to scroll down through all these beautiful icons and comments here. Well, I would say if human relationships are a little too treacherous for you, you got some work to do. So it is a profound challenge. I think one of the things that frightens me the most is it seems many people are losing their ability to skillfully relate, form relationships, and maintain strong and meaningful relationships with others. So, uh, and animals are fine, rocks and trees. You can start there. Let's see. Dhammapala Frank. Ajahn, you mentioned the final analysis a few times. Can you elaborate what the final analysis entails? I think I'm just referring to the at the end of your life, um, which for me was 5 minutes ago and 10 minutes ago. So, um, and we have this uh, almost inescapable habit of creating a sense of self and evaluating uh, what we're doing, how we're doing. It seems inescapable for most people to step outside of this idea that I am somebody who needs to be doing something. Um, we also seem to have some need to sense that we're progressing or we're moving forward, right? Uh, but in old age, or as we near and sense that our life might be ending for whatever reason, doesn't necessarily need to be old age. Um, we oftentimes quite naturally sort of reflect back on what was that. And there's this evaluation. So that's what I mean by the final analysis. And it's nice to have a storehouse of goodness that one can focus on and dwell on in the final analysis. But also, I think the promise of the the Buddhist teaching is that, well, in the language of the translators, one has done what should have been done, or one's work is finished. So, a thorough and effective cultivation of this Dhamma and this practice can leave one in a place where the final analysis, it's all good. Marilyn, good morning. Are we not connecting here on this black mirror? Yes, we are. So it can be used for good or for ill, like anything. So, but for many, it leads to profound isolation and a lack of connection. So, didn't the Buddha say everything in this world is on fire? I take that as a direction not to reach out and grasp at things, people included. Yeah, in the Anatalakkhana Sutta, the Buddha says everything is on fire. The eye is on fire. Sights are on fire. The ear, sounds, and he goes through all the senses. But what is it that they are burning with? They are burning with greed, burning with hatred, burning with delusion. And where is that located? It's not located in the object. It's located here in our own hearts. So, and there's many places in the Sutta where the Buddha talks about the world, and he defines the world as this fathom-long body. So the world is burning, but it's burning with our own liabilities to perpetuate dukkha, because we haven't sorted out these dimensions of craving. We haven't addressed our habits of reacting with greed, hatred, and delusion. And okay, well, I'm going to leave it at that, friends. Have a great day. If you haven't done so already, take a few moments to discover that energetic, loving, warm sense of connection. The potential lies within your being and your own heart. And one can find that in many ways and nurture that in many ways. But do find that and nurture that as you move through your day. And hopefully you find this an intriguing theme for contemplation. What's the relationship between a lack of connection and dukkha and a sense of connection and the energy of sukha, happiness? Okay. See you all tomorrow. Be well, friends.